Okay, go ahead.
Welcome back to our Q&A. This is part 2 of our Q&A session. Thanks again for all the great questions that you guys sent in. So we'll just pick up where we left off. This one is just for Ken. Do you find it more of a mental challenge or physical challenge?
I assume that the question is directed at me because, as I assume almost everyone knows by now, I do have some physical impairments or challenges that make hiking quite difficult. So the answer to that question is I find it actually, and unfortunately, I find it much more of a physical challenge for me. Mentally, I'm enjoying myself out here. Sure, there's times when I get bored, and there's times when I get frustrated when, my brains are being cooked by a desert temperatures. But all in all, I'm having fun. It's not like it's a grueling adventure. It's not like I'm in ranger school or something like that, which really did suck. Pain is something that I've had to deal with for quite a long time, and I am too damn stubborn to let pain keep me from doing the things that I want to do. So along with my own stubbornness and handfuls of ibuprofen and a supportive hiking partner, I'm gonna make it down a trail no matter what. So, okay, a question probably for both of us, but Goldilocks will handle this one. Do you miss having the goats along?
In some ways, yes, I do. They're definitely a lot of fun to have on trail, and it's not, there are days that it would really be nice to have them carry some of the load, or be able to stretch out some of our longer food carries. They are a lot of work. It is nice without having the goats to be able to get up, pack up our stuff, and get on the trail. Whereas having the goats, that adds an extra element of work, both at the beginning of the day, just getting their packs balanced, getting them loaded up, getting everybody wrangled up and headed down the trail, and then at the end of the day doing that in reverse and getting them set up for the night. So it is a lot more work, and I don't miss that part of it, but I do miss the companionship and definitely the conversations and the weird looks that we get from people having the goats with us, and they just add an element of entertainment that would be fun to have, but it would take us 3 years to get to Canada if we had them with us. So yes and no, but mostly yes.
Okay, what do you do to keep your morale up on down days?
So for me, I think just hiking with somebody that I enjoy spending time with. Oh, and him. No, I'm teasing. I think that helps a lot, just to have, somebody to kind of balance out. When I'm having a down day, he's usually not, or we can kind of commiserate on our down days. So just having somebody to hike with and either share the misery or help kind of balance things out helps a ton. The other thing I think both of us do, especially on the tougher days, is we do have music and podcasts that we listen to that kind of just helps us not just be focused on the misery of the trail, because it's not all fun and roses. So sometimes just having something different to focus on other than the trail helps a ton. So for me, it's having a great partner and listening to things that just distract me from the tough times.
Yeah, literally the same thing for me. I would just add that I think it's a significant advantage to be able to hike with a partner, as long as obviously you're compatible with one another. I think people who hike the trail alone, it's mentally significantly more challenging, because when you're having a down day, there's no one to lift you up. And even when you're having a great day, if there's no one with you to share that great day with, that beautiful sunrise or that cool rattlesnake that you just saw, it seems like it's not quite as significant or as much fun to not have someone to share that with. So, but otherwise, yeah, I agree with what you said.
That last question kind of segues into another question. What percentage of hiking time is listening to podcasts or music, and what podcast do you listen to most? For me, I would say maybe 5 to 10% of my hiking time is listening to music. I don't do it a lot, and I don't listen to podcasts. I just listen to music. But yeah, I would say 10% at the most for me.
I listen to music probably about the same time, only about 10% of the time, not as much as you would think. It tends to go in spurts. I'll go several days where I don't listen to anything, and then I'll have 1 or 2 days where I literally have my headphones in all day long. The music I listen to, I'm kind of a rock guy. I like rock, something really energetic that can get me pumped up to hike. Although a lot of times I also just listen to the soundtrack to a lot of the videos, the video soundtracks I use. I've got a library of about 150 pieces of music that I use to select it to put into the videos, and it's music I like, but also I like to kind of familiarize myself with what I have in my library, so as I'm editing videos I can try to remember the type of music that I think will fit into that particular section of video that I'm working on. But I also listen to podcasts quite a bit. One of my favorites is Hardcore History by a guy named Dan Carlin. A super, super interesting guy, very educational. But my number one go-to for podcasts is good old Joe Rogan. I download his stuff and listen to that pretty much nonstop. He's got some super interesting guests on there and very thought-provoking, and really helps the time go by when you're trudging through the desert. Interestingly, though, I don't listen to podcasts or music at all while night hiking. And you would think that would probably be the one time that you would want to listen to something, because you're hiking at night and there's nothing really out there to see or do, and you'd think it'd be boring. But I don't know. It's just hiking at night. I kind of want to have all my senses.
You have to focus a lot more on the trail because you can only see what's right in front of you. So you have to be able to, I think, pay closer attention.
Yeah, you can't kind of just drift off into Neverland the way you do when you're hiking during the daytime. So anyway, thanks for the question.
This question comes from Stan, my son. Are you still happy with your choices of luxury items? What has changed since the kitchen sink video?
Well, whoa. Have to edit that out. Luxury items. We'll probably recap. Some of the luxury items I brought, I have sent back. One of them that I swore I was going to carry the whole length of the trip was a pair of 13-ounce pair of binoculars. I did carry them all the way to Wrightwood, but as much as I loved them and they were great when I used them, I simply couldn't justify 13 ounces for something that I was only using once a day, maybe. Plus they were just getting beat to hell on a trail. They weren't a cheap, junky pair of binoculars. They were a pretty good pair, so I figured I better just send them home before I completely destroyed them. But the one luxury item that I think we can both agree on, that we're happy we have, and we can heartily recommend, are
our giant pillows.
Our giant Sea to Summit Super XL.
Eros Deluxe, I believe.
Yeah,
It's
look at the size of these. I mean,
full-size pillow.
most of you guys don't have a pillow this big on your bed, but let me tell you, when you're laying in your tent at night and you got this thing to cuddle up to and snuggle, it is so comfortable. I mean, those little dinky pillows, they're always sliding out from underneath your head, or you you roll over just a little bit and you fall, your head falls off the end of the pillow. Not with these big puppies here. And weight-wise, I think they're only about an ounce and a half heavier than the much smaller versions. So, in our opinion,
by far so worth it.
Yeah, that extra ounce and a half or whatever is.
It's only 5.9 ounces on our scale at home, which I don't think that's bad at all.
No, and I mean, in all seriousness, sleep is super critical. I use the word super a lot, and I don't want to, but sleep is very critical for obvious reasons. And I mean, that's how you restore your energy and rest and prevent injury. So anything you can do to increase the quality of your sleep while you're on the trail is well worth whatever few ounces that luxury item may weigh. So,
all right, here is a question for Roadkill. If Goldilocks could not continue, would you solo?
Well, as we said at the very beginning of this video, in part 1, that's actually something that we are seriously wrestling with right now. She has an injury, and while we hope and she'll be able to recover and continue on the trail, we've had to think about, for the first time since we started, the very real possibility that one of us may not be able to continue, or that one of us may at the very least need to take an extended time off the trail to heal up from an injury. So the answer as of right now is yes, I would continue solo to the best of my ability. I don't know how it's going to affect me. I don't know how it would affect me psychologically. This PCT through hike is an adventure that we have both been planning for several years, and we plan to do it together as a couple, as a shared experience. And it seems like without her to share the experience with me, it would be severely diminished. But having said that, the PCT is also a dream that I had long before I met Goldilocks. It was something that I wanted to do literally since I was a teenager, when I first read the book by Colin Fletcher, The 1,000-Mile Summer. So it's a complicated question, and I'm trying to give you the best answer I can, which is yes, I would want to finish my through hike, but I think it really remains to be seen how rewarding or how motivated I would be if I actually had to continue solo. I may find after a few weeks or a month or so that I'm just not enjoying the experience, and decide that if I can't do it with her, I just don't want to do it anymore. Okay, this question is for Goldilocks, and it looks like it was sent to her from someone who says they are a nurse practitioner themselves. How were you able to leave your job?
Well, I actually, it turned out that the company that I was working for closed their doors at a very timely, for my situation, timely time. So the business decided to close at the end of January, and I would have actually had to have left my job in the middle of February in order to do the hike. So timing wise, it worked out well. But in a nutshell, that's how.
Although the question wasn't directed at me, I actually left my job 2 weeks before Goldilocks did. Mine, however, was a planned retirement. I retired on the 24th anniversary of my employment date at Washington State University. So, go Cougs. Okay, here's a question. Are you planning to pick up fishing gear for the Sierras, and who among you is the better fisherman?
Well, I can answer the last part of that. I am the better fisherman.
It's true.
I think I have more patience, so I'm more willing to sit there and try and try and try and try. When somebody else I know gets maybe a little bit more frustrated and impatient, but But we both love it, and we're super excited to be able to fish in the Sierra. I'll let you answer the second part of the question.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, we are planning to fish in the Sierra. So.
Yes.
And the second part, and what was?
Oh, just the.
Oh, well.
Are we planning to?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, we're planning to fish in the Sierras.
All right, next question. What is the binder clip for on your hat?
This little, God, can't get it off. Anyway, this little dealie here that most people use to clip paper together. Actually, like clipping that paper together. Yeah, I keep one in the corner of my hat all the time. And that's because when I'm wearing my my windbreaker or rain jacket, whichever I happen to have on, particularly in extremely windy conditions, which is our pretty much every day in the desert here in Southern California, I find that just pulling the hood up over like this, it gets blown off almost instantly. So the binder clip, by pulling down the edge of my hood to the edge of the bill of my hat and then clipping both of them together, then it doesn't matter how hard the wind blows, my hood stays on my head and continues to do the job of keeping wind and or water from running down the back of my neck. So that's what it's for.
All right, next question. How much weight have you each lost?
I weighed myself the day that we got to my dad's house from Tehachapi, which was this past Sunday, and I was down 26 pounds. So I started out on the trail weighing 265 pounds, and when I got on the scale 4 days ago, it was 239. So while that sounds awesome, I'm glad that I have lost 26 pounds. The bad news is it's not 26 pounds of fat. Yeah, I've definitely lost some fat for sure, but this shirt used to be skin tight around my biceps, and it was also much tighter across the chest and shoulders. So unfortunately, I've probably lost about 15 pounds of fat and probably 10 pounds of muscle at least. So, oh well.
And I don't know exactly how much I have lost, but it's somewhere between 12 and 20 pounds. So I'll take it.
Yep, every little bit helps.
Yeah.
Hey, next question. How much pack weight are each of you carrying?
So for me, I don't know exactly how much. My base weight before we left home was 18 pounds, and I haven't really gotten rid of enough to make a big difference in my base weight. So I would say on average with water, our average water carry of 2 or 3 liters and maybe 4 or 5 days of food, I'm probably carrying about 35 pounds. I have carried more, but I would say on average somewhere between 30 and 35 pounds for me.
And for me, I think mine is probably, it varies between 35 and 40 pounds. I said a little bit earlier that my base weight runs about 22 pounds. A lot of that is because I carry a lot of electronics. Because I'm making these videos, I have a tripod, I carry extra large batteries, I carry a solar panel, which I initially did not start out with, but because of the weird situation with the virus this year where it became really difficult to access public places where we would normally go to recharge electronics, I had to have some alternate method of charging electronics in the field. I typically carry 2 to 3 liters of water, and I'm a pretty healthy eater, so the rest of my weight is made up of food. So especially at the beginning of a resupply where we're going to be out there for 4 or 5 days, I'll have probably close to 10 pounds of food in that pack. So yeah, 35 to 40 pounds average. Well, here's a good question. Who is taking care of the homestead, or house, and goats while you guys are on the trail?
Well, our daughter, Laura, is taking care of them.
Hey, Laura.
Hi, Laura. And she has 4 little helpers that are helping her as well, her children, so our grandchildren. So it sounds like they're taking great care of everybody. So thank you guys.
Yeah, it's just not our herd of goats, pack goats, but we also have a couple of cats and a couple of dogs and
Snakes,
some fish and a whole bunch of snakes. People are always shocked to learn that Goldilocks not only is not afraid of snakes, she actually raises and breeds snakes. So pretty cool, huh?
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What is the funniest thing or embarrassing thing?
Well, there's one that comes to mind, and try to keep a straight face. So it had been a pretty long, hard hike, and we pushed really hard to get into the Acton KOA. You know where I'm going with this. Yeah, so we go into the Acton KOA, and they have a tiny little store there where you can buy refreshments, candy, and a cooler full of different beverages. And I was just craving something cold and wet. I didn't care what it was. Anything cold and wet that wasn't just pond filtered water. And as I'm looking through all the Gatorade and Diet Cokes and things that I thought I wanted, I looked down in the bottom shelf, and there was a quart of ice cold milk. And I have no idea why, but for some reason milk just sounded like the most refreshing thing that I could possibly crave at that minute. So I bought that quart of milk. I went back out the picnic table and I chugged the whole quart down in about 3 minutes. And while it was delicious going down, what was it, 20 minutes?
Maybe.
I started feeling a really uncomfortable churning in my stomach. And in 3 or 4 minutes after that, I was racing for the bathroom with my cheeks clenched. And I barely made it. And that was the beginning of about a 12-hour long session of running back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to the restroom. And I think it probably finished up around midnight that night before I finally was able to go to sleep without having to worry about being woken up. Anyway, I don't want to give you the graphic details, but let's just say that was both embarrassing for me and hysterically funny for Goldilocks and all the other hikers that were there at the Acton KOA when that was happening. And they haven't let me forget it ever since. Okay, we got this question from more than one person, but any issues with ticks from hiking through all of that brush?
So we personally have not had any issues with ticks. I had a couple of ticks on me in Mission Creek, but that's the only time that I have had any ticks on me. We had heard from other hikers going through some of the brushy areas that we've shown on video that they have had ticks, but we personally did not get any ticks in those stretches of the trail. So
same with me. I don't think I've had a single tick on me yet during a trail. But while we're talking about creepy crawlers, I will tell you that about 4 or 5 nights ago, Well, no, actually, before we got off the trail in Tehachapi, we had put our tent up and got
It was the night that we hiked the aqueduct.
night we hiked the aqueduct. Yeah, I laid out my sleeping bag and was
Exhausted.
just literally getting ready to climb inside there and turn off my headlamp when I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, just in time to look and see a big nasty looking camel spider running across the top of my sleeping bag, heading for the inside of it, right where my feet were about to go. And now I have a stain of bug, not from me. I didn't put the stain there, but I mean a stain from
Bug guts.
Bug guts in my sleeping bag that needs to be washed out. So, but I can't imagine what that would have been like had I been laying there in the dark and would have been a yikes.
Okay, next question. What are some things you expected about the PCT and things you didn't expect?
Well, Goldilocks and I had done a lot of research on the PCT before we started, so it wasn't necessarily anything that caught us by surprise, but I will say that just this year's particular situation totally caught us off guard, and it's made the trail challenging in some ways and unique in other ways. Just to kind of go back, in a typical year on the PCT, 50 hikers per day will set off from the monument at Campo and hike north. So the trail, especially in the first several hundred miles, can actually be pretty crowded with hikers, and you'll see hikers nonstop. At least that's what we've understood, and that's what we expected. But this year, of course, I don't need to go into the details of why this year was so different, but let's just say that instead of 50 hikers a day leaving the monument at Campo, it was probably between 5 and 10. And so for much of the trail, literally up until we got off trail this past weekend, it was common for us to go 1, 2, 3 days at a time without seeing another hiker at all. Nobody. And so in that regard, that was something we definitely did not expect. We didn't expect to be out there just all on our own, feeling like we were, I guess that's probably what it was like hiking the PCT back in the 90s, back in the days when Cheryl Strayed was hiking it. But it's certainly, it's an abnormal condition for today. And then, of course, this year, again, as I already alluded to, it's been a little bit of a challenge because things like resupplying, support from trail angels, the maintenance on the trail itself is normally done by the trail guerrillas, just access to a lot of things that PCT hikers today or in this era take for granted, they simply have not been available to us. So it's been we've had to be more independent, we've had to be more resourceful. And so those were things we did not expect. I'm not saying that they detracted from our hike, and I think in some ways they may have actually enhanced it. But again, it was something we certainly did not anticipate. Has Guthook, which is the phone app, been pretty reliable / accurate so far as water sources, camping, etc.?
Yes, it has been very accurate. People can add comments to each of the waypoints on Guthook, and that has been invaluable for knowing whether a water source has been dry or if there's actually water. I can't imagine hiking the PCT without using Guthook. That's been a great resource. Next question. How do you keep your ups and downs timed with Goldilocks? One of you wants to get up and hike, and the other wants to stay in the tent.
Well, That certainly happens. It certainly happens. As I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, I think that's one of the huge advantages to hiking with a partner, is because you really can kind of help keep each other motivated. Inevitably, yeah, somebody is tired from the night before or didn't sleep well, or they're just worn out and they just don't feel like hiking that day, or they don't feel like getting up and hiking before, a certain point in time. So that's where the partner can really help kind of encourage that person to get up and get going. And I think that's definitely a huge challenge for solo hikers. I mean, when you're by yourself and you're just not feeling it that day and don't want to get up and hike, if you don't have somebody there to kind of motivate you and you're relying on yourself, that's tough. I mean, that's really tough. My hat is off to people who hike this trail solo and are successful at it, because it's, in my opinion, orders of magnitude more difficult than hiking with a partner to kind of keep you motivated and on schedule. We've been trying to answer these questions as thoroughly as possible, and I guess we underestimated how many questions there were. So in the attempt to try to keep this reasonably concise, stand by for part 3.